It is Friday, isn't it? So if we get everybody in our seats, we are in third reading. And the next bill for our consideration is House Bill 74.
House Bill 74, sponsored by Travel, Wyoming Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund, an act relating to state lands, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
We have amendments. Representative Storer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 74 and ask for your favorable consideration. Yesterday on second reading, you may recall, I discussed this amendment to the Outdoor Recreation Trust Fund, the bill that is attempting to support local communities who want to build recreational infrastructure around the state. This amendment returns the original purpose in the bill of creating a corpus of $50 million using some of the excess funds that are raised through our statewide lodging tax. Assuming a spending policy of 5%, it will generate what is truly a rather modest sum of $2.5 million. The proof of concept for such a fund has been demonstrated through the applications from around the state for these kinds of projects over the last year, totaling over $70 million, 5 times the current available funding. So this amendment will provide a specific target for raising these funds to match our local community's resources, and I ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Would anybody like to speak for their first time on this amendment? Second time. I sensing your urge to vote. All those in favor of third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 74, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The chair is in doubt. All those in favor, please rise. Knapp, are you down? You're up. Well, you got Henderson too. I don't know. Henderson, are you in or out? Henderson's in. All right. Okay, all those opposed, please stand. More than 17. The amendment fails. Representative Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 74 and would ask for your favorable consideration. My concern is that we are establishing 50 million right off the top bat, and I think we need a couple of years to get the trust fund established, take a look at exactly what the projects are. I know they mentioned that there's been a lot of applications, but once this trust fund gets established and the commission gets established, it always takes a year or two to get it up and going. So this funding would get it through 2 bienniums, and at that point, then I believe that we'll have some very responsible legislators in this chamber, and they will definitely take a look at this again as these proposals come back to the travel committee. If they think they're worthy, then they can up the ante, and if not, then we can shut down the trust fund. I'll stand for any questions.
Representative Storer for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the frugalness of this body. I do just want to make it clear that as we know, construction work just doesn't come inexpensively. A good example is if we only put $12 million in this fund, that will generate around $600,000 a year. That's essentially the cost of 1 mile of asphalt pathway. In the northwest part of the state where the mountains are sharp, we've had a lot of experience building these. To make them durable, they really need to have a good substructure. They really need to be built like a small road, essentially. So they don't come cheap, let's just say. So I do think if we're serious about helping our communities to invest in projects like pathways, trails, boating facilities, those kinds of things, to make sure that our communities are places that people want to visit and live, that this is a reasonable and valuable investment to make. Thank you. So on and against the amendment.
Vice Chair Western for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise against this amendment, and I would urge a no vote. If you talk to some of the agencies and some of these projects that they're dealing with, for example, a couple of years ago, or I believe it was last year, there's over $74 million worth of requests of projects all across our state that are shovel-ready. They're just need the money to fund the project. So I think the demand is absolutely there. I certainly appreciate the intent, but the communities want this. They have their projects ready to go, ready to submit for this fund. So I rise and urge a no vote. Thank you.
Representative Jennings for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just a question of the bringer and perhaps the second speaker. So the 12 million and it biannualized, am I hearing correctly that that's $6 million a mile to build one of these paths?
Anybody else for their first time? Representative Larson for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If the presenters of the bill, maybe on their second round, could just remind us again how the bill establishes. We have that money coming into a trust account, but then there's an income account. And there's a percentage there that can, a maximum of 20% of the income or the trust account. But I'm just wanting to make sure that I understand the money coming into the corpus. Is part of that able to go to the income that year? Just work us through how that money comes into the trust account and what's available each year, starting from the first year, to help us understand if we like this amendment or we don't like it, please.
Representative Nicholas for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against the amendment. Ladies and gentlemen, we've debated this already, so I hope you'll stick to your guns. Frankly, 12 million will not be sufficient to do what this fund is intended for. You know, we're in the process of now finishing out the Wildlife Trust Fund. That's 200 million. And frankly, there are a lot more things in this that will benefit our communities and direct benefit than probably the Wildlife Trust Fund. And so I urge your support of this, in particular because this $6 million comes from lodging tax, which is paid 85% from out-of-state folks who we're going to use these dollars to help improve our trails. Anytime that we want to change that, it's a simple thing. You just bring an amendment or a bill 2 years from now or 5 years from now, and you say, okay, the trust has got enough, or we need the money for something else. But let's sail this ship and get rolling. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time? Representative Storr?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer, I think the two questions I heard, the $600,000 number is an estimate for the cost of an asphalt pathway. I just confirmed that earlier this morning with our
Names are okay.
Okay, names are okay. Teton County Pathways person. And again, this is to build a durable pathway that's well built. For trails that are nature trails, they're more like $15,000 to $50,000 depending on the terrain. So that's the kind of investment we're talking about. To answer the question about how the funding moves, I believe the trust fund is inviolate. It will earn its earnings, and its earnings will go into the income fund. And then with legislative approval, those funds can then be spent on projects. I hope that answers the questions. Thank you.
Representative Western for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the good gentleman from the same county as myself, maybe I misheard, but I thought it was 6 million a mile. And if that was the intent, then no, that is not an accurate number. But getting on the distribution component, we already had this debate where the corporate generates income, it puts that in a reserve account. And this legislature, the way it's written currently, has to approve the projects that are coming out of that reserve account that are over $250,000. Means they have to come to us and say, hey, we need $350,000 to build this walking trail from here to here. The legislature has to approve it the way the bill is currently drafted. So I hope that provides a little bit of clarity. Thank you.
Anybody else for their second time before the bringer of the amendment? Representative Zwanitz or Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate all the comments. But ladies and gentlemen, if we put this fund at 50 million or 30 million or 12 million, it's going to happen the same way. All my amendment does, because all we're doing is putting 6 million a biennium in, right? And so if it's capped at 20 or 30 or 50 million, that just means that we got to go that many years till we hit that cap level. This says, and I'm not changing the funding, we're not going to be able to build any more or any less projects because all we're getting funding for, 6 million a biennium. It just says, hey, after a couple of bienniums, let's check and see where we are. And you guys can come back, during the budget session and put in some more. So, but I just wanted everybody to know you're not going to be able to build anything more or less if you put this up or down, because only 6 million is going in the account this time. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
All those in favor of third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 74 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 74 has failed. House Bill 74 having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Alaman? No. Allred? Aye. Andrew? Aye. Angelos? Aye. Banks? Aye. Bear? No. Berger? Aye. Brown? No. Burkhart? Aye. Byron? Aye. Chadwick? Aye. Chestick? Aye. Clouston? Aye. Conrad? Aye. Crago? No. Davis? No. Eklund? No. Haroldson? Aye. Harshman? Aye. Heiner? No. Henderson? Aye. Hornock? No. Jennings? No. Knapp? No. Larson Lloyd? Aye. Larson JT? Aye. Lawley? Aye. Locke? No. Nyman? No. Newsom excused. Nicholas? Aye. Nemec? Aye. Northrup? Aye. Oakley? Aye. Obermuller? Aye. O'Hearn? Aye. Olson? Aye. Ottman? Pendergraft? No. Penn? No. Provenza? Aye. Rodriguez-Williams? No. Sherwood? Aye. Singh? No. Slagle? No. Smith? No. Stiff? Aye. Storer? Aye. Strzok? No. Stivar? No. Tarver? No. Trujillo? No. Walters? Aye. Ward? No. Washit? Aye. Western? Aye. Winter? No. Wiley? Aye. Yin? Aye. Zwanitzer Dan? Aye. Zwanitzer Dave? No. Speaker Summers?
Aye.
Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 35 aye, 26 no, 1 excused.
House Bill 74, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, House Bill 74 has passed the House. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 181.
House Bill 181, sponsored by Appropriations, Online Sports Wagering Amendments, an act relating to gaming, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move third reading amendment for House Bill 181 and ask for your favorable approval. And folks, what we're doing on this amendment as it's come to third reading, we had some language change that was suggested by the commission. And on page 4, when the gaming entity is applying for a permit, we currently say, starting on line 5, that they have consent to permit the commission to conduct a criminal history record check. And we want to change that language a little to say that the applicant may have allowance for the commission to obtain fingerprints and to conduct a national criminal history record check. And that's the extent of the amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Washit for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a quick question on that. Does that mean that we're going to have some of these people who won't be backgrounded? Is it just an allowance? Does that make it discretionary, optional, or not?
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the bringer? Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to answer the good chairman of Judiciary, no, I don't think that's the case. What it does is it requires them to make an allowance that a background check take place.
All those in favor of third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 181 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. House third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 181 has passed. House Bill 181 having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allemand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Klauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom excused. Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermueller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez-Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washit? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Brown? No to aye. Locke? Aye to no. Penn? Aye to no. Angelos? No to aye. Strock, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 53 aye, 8 no, 1 excused.
House Bill 181, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, House Bill 181 has passed the House.
Mr. Speaker,
Privilege of the floor. Please go ahead, Representative Ward.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. A friend of mine, Darcy Gudger, is up in the gallery over here. She's from my hometown, Casper, and part of Moms for Liberty, and I'm happy she's here to see us.
Welcome to the House. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Representative Lawley. Hey!
The Committee of the Whole will please come to order. The first bill for our consideration is House Bill 149.
House Bill 149, sponsored by Representative Zawanitzer Dan, Protection of Healthcare Workers, an act relating to crimes and offenses. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred House Bill 149, Protection of Healthcare Workers, respectfully reports same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Clouston, Hornuck, O'Hearn, Penn, Trujillo, Ward, Yin, Zawanitzer. Representative Zawanitzer, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Zwanziger?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I move when the Committee of the Whole rise to report, it do so the recommendation that House Bill 149 do pass. I further would move the Standing Committee amendment, and I will turn over presentation of the bill to myself. So members, what House Bill 149, Protection of Healthcare Workers does, and well, let me just take you back to last year. So this bill actually came out of a joint judiciary interim topic where it's been increasing in previous years, but we are now, Wyoming is the only state that has absolutely no protections against healthcare workers on the books. And I'll just repeat that. 49 states have something in their laws that has protections towards healthcare workers. Wyoming does not. And so that interim bill went through the process and it failed to become a committee bill by one vote, primarily because we were trying to make a first offense a felony. So what I and my co-sponsors have attempted to do is make the first offense a misdemeanor, then a second or subsequent offense a felony for violence against a healthcare worker. Let me quickly walk through the Standing Committee amendment. It does three primary things. It's a little lengthy, but a lot are shalls to make. So the first thing in the Standing Committee amendment, which again I'll move and talk about at this time, from lines 1 till 11, it really reduces the misdemeanor fine from 1,000 to 750. That certainly wasn't controversial in our committee. Then the second provision, when it's everything after page 6, it talks about signage and requirements to post conspicuous notices and do reporting requirements for all of the on-site injuries. We felt that information was a little bit burdensome. So first, we took it to at least a healthcare facility that had 25 employees, because we certainly didn't want to put undue burden on, a dentist's office or a small business to have to do some of these reporting requirements. After that passed, we further went through
and took all of the shalls to may when it came to all these reporting requirements. So those healthcare facilities that would like to do that certainly are still allowed to, but we took off that kind of onerous burden and bureaucraticness of making them do it. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on the standing committee amendment at this time or call for the question.
You have heard the motion of the standing committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? Question having been called, I'm catching up. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed to standing committee amendment number 1 on House Bill 149 say no. Standing committee amendment number 1 on House Bill 149 has been adopted. We're back on the bill.
And so thank you again, Madam Chairman. I would say we already have some of the language for law enforcement, for firefighters, for other public servants in our statutes at this time. But our nurses have really been on the front lines for the past 2 years, as we're all aware of the pandemic, and they've been very, very difficult years. Violence against healthcare workers is 6 times higher than the average for all other industries. Again, let me say that 6 times higher than any other industry. And then again, last year, 73% of all non-fatal workplace violence injuries, healthcare workers. 3/4 of all non-fatal workplace violence injuries were against healthcare workers. And the odd thing about this whole thing is nurses are actually required to treat patients even if they are assaulted. After they're assaulted, they have to go back in there and continue to treat them under federal law, or a $120,000 fine per instance. You can imagine how that makes healthcare workers feel at times. Very unsafe. So we heard multiple testimonies of people who had moved here and who had trepidation in moving to Wyoming, because it's very well known that Wyoming is the only state without protections towards healthcare workers. And so we had several nurses and our CEOs of 2 of our larger hospitals in the state all discuss, what they've been hearing from their employees, and the fear is real out there. So would ask for your favorable support and be happy to answer any questions.
Representative, or actually Chairman Washu, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple questions. First off, on the threat of violence, do we have that in other places in the Green Books for this threatened? Normally, the requirement with a threat requires that there be the present ability to follow through and actually cause the act, rather than at some future date, someplace, sometime, I'm going to punch you in the nose type of threat. That you have to have the present ability to carry out that threat and so forth. So that concerns me a little bit. And then the idea of a threatened property damage with a dollar specification. How do we know what the value of the damage is on a threat that's not carried out? Obviously, if they say I'm going to burn down your house, it's probably worth more than $1,000. But other forms of property damage, how do we know what the value is? And would the offender know? I'm going to slash your tires. Does he know whether you have 20-inch $600 tires, or do you have, and how many tires was he planning to slash? So I just think it's problematic language to include a threat to an uncarried out specified dollar amount. Thank you.
Representative Penn or Chairman Swansiger, do you want to wait, or do you want to
No,
respond?
I'm happy to jump on in, Madam Chairman. Water's great. Actually, the only other place I think in Wyoming statute where we talk about a threat of violence is under our domestic violence statutes. And so you can actually commit an act of domestic violence, or you can threaten an act on a significant other in our domestic violence statutes, where that's pulled from. I do not know how to quantify, a threat towards a numerical amount. And that came from the bill we were working on in the interim, where I sat next to the good chairman of Judiciary. And so I will go back and see if I can look through my notes on where that language came from and if it exists elsewhere in statute. But I do think that presents an interesting concern about how you threaten to commit a violent act, and that violent act would be quantifiable to a numerical amount. So that might be some interesting language to try to take out on second reading.
Representative Larson?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and so over the years, this body has resisted hate crimes. If there's statutes in place against doing harm or violence, we have that in statute, and this appears, so my question is if you weren't a healthcare provider and somebody made those same threats or whatever against you, is that not a crime now? And if it is, why do we need to carve out and put healthcare providers on there? That seems like we're just specifying a uniqueness similar to like a hate crime. So if the presenter can, or the sponsor of the bill can help me understand that, I don't know why we would do that if it's already a crime now to do that to an individual regardless of what their profession is.
Chairman Zwanziger, do you want to respond to that, or? It's not, okay. Representative Hornock?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I have a few concerns with this bill going forward. So in testimony during committee, we heard from a lot of hospitals that do want something like this. However, one of the problems I see with this is that by enacting language into state statute, it now puts the burden on the state rather than on the hospital itself. So currently what happens is there's a threat of violence, an employee at the hospital brings that up, makes a complaint, files a complaint, and it kind of goes up the chain from there. If it's deemed by the hospital as being worthy of a call to the police department's called. So there are existing structures for this already in place that are currently ongoing. Our hospital in town here has their own security staff that takes care of some of this stuff. If they need to escalate that, they call further enforcement. So there, another thing that this law requires signage. They can put up signs, nothing stops them from putting up a sign right now that says, hey, don't threaten our staff or something like, or the police can be called. So right now there's systems in place that take care of this, and if an employee feels like their complaint is not heard, they bring that up to their employer, and they can legally, they have legal recourse through the employer. Now, by putting this in state statutes, we're actually taking that a little bit away and putting that legal recourse now on the state. And that is the problem with this bill. So, again, it was mentioned also the threat of violence. What does that exactly mean? That could mean something different for me than it means to other people. So we need to be very careful with that as well. But I just think that though healthcare workers are very important, there are existing systems that are working currently in place rather than putting a state statute that really puts a lot of liability on the state to take care of this stuff. That's my concern with this bill, and I would actually urge no vote on this and let those facilities continue as they are and take care of their employees the way that they need to be taken care of. Thank you.
Representative Penn.
Thank you, Chairman. I actually have an amendment. So at this time with your approval, I move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 of House Bill 49 and ask for your consideration. So this amendment is on page 12, lines 12 through 14, and the intent is to delete that section and insert the department may place conditions upon a license, suspend admissions, or suspend a license issued if they violate the provisions. And the provisions that they're discussing are if they violate the provision that was left in. So a lot of the regulatory burden that was of concern in our committee was removed with the initial amendment that we discussed. And I'm good with that, but there still was this verbiage that put these facilities at risk of loss of license if they weren't reporting. In my experience, most facilities actually are pretty great at doing the reporting, but I do know that there could be some concerns in certain circumstances where the reporting of an assault might be hindered some, or staff members might be encouraged to not report it. Say in like a nursing home where you might have a resident who's regularly combative, and if those incidents get reported, the facility might be at risk of losing that resident and therefore loss of income from that person. So I do think that there's reason here to keep some teeth in the bill with regards to the reporting. I didn't feel comfortable with the regulatory burden that was placed before, but I'm comfortable with that current amendment. And so this amendment just seeks to change the language there, that there's still some teeth, but the facilities aren't actually at risk of losing their license, but could have suspension.
We are on Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 for House Bill 149. Is there any others who would like to discuss that amendment? Chairman Schwanzinger.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is a great amendment. I think with the standing committee amendment, the sponsor of this amendment did actually make the bill better and say if it's no longer required, we're being too harsh. So I think it's great, and it goes along with the lines of getting all the bureaucracy out of the bill. So I would ask for your favorable vote.
Ready to call for a question on the amendment? And I sense there is a need to do that. A question having been called, all those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. All right, the Amendment Number 1, Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 149 has been adopted. We're back on that bill. Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess my discussion is similar to what we've already heard. Threat is a little vague, and it can be kind of dangerous in that way. It needs to be very clear what conduct is not permissible when you're talking in criminal law. And so I guess like looking on page 3, lines 4 through 6, when it says makes a threat accompanied by a show of immediate force or violence, okay, I can get, that's clarified enough that I can get behind it. This idea of threatening property damage of a certain value, that's like seems absurd to me. I'm not behind that. And so some of the threat language, it needs to be tight. I mean, it's a criminal offense. And interestingly and randomly, I've never seen this, a 2-day minimum in jail. And okay. And I wanted to, I guess, discuss something that the good representative from my county talked about, and that was basically, isn't this covered in other areas of the law? And that was my first thought on this bill. Like certainly assault and battery, for example, the threat thing isn't, but even if we narrowed it to assault and battery. So at first I thought it was unnecessary, but we did hear testimony in committee number 1 that, I mean, we had a lot of interest in it from healthcare workers. I mean, it's something that they feel will protect them. And when I started like wrangling with that and listening to them, there is a difference, I think, when that they could tell somebody, we have a statute. It is against the law for you to, as a healthcare worker, for you to assault me or batter me or whatever. So in the end, it doesn't do anything. It adds an additional statute, sure, but one specifically as applied to them, and it's something that they want. So I don't see any downside there. And it's something that that industry, those workers are interested in. So I kind of got over that, worrying about that, something specific to them. But with that, I'll look at it, threatening property and threats without good sideboards of an immediate show or, imminent threat, something like that, I'm not on board with. But generally, I think we can get there with this bill.
Representative Rodriguez-Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On and opposed to the bill. Committee number 1, as the bringer of the bill mentioned, dealt with this topic during the interim and it was defeated. My question to the bringer of the bill is, at what point will creating these special classes stop? I mean, we heard testimony where they wanted to add in coaches and therapists and teachers and so forth. And so I don't support creating special classes. On and opposed.
Representative Clauston.
Madam Chairwoman, we sat through a lot of testimony on this bill. I am for it. We had the hospitals come to us and the employees come to us and saying, we're the only state that doesn't have this. This is helping in 49 other states. And to me, it's not just a question of healthcare workers, right? We have a lack of respect for teachers, a lack of respect for police officers, for EMTs. I think the signage throughout our state that you need to respect those people that are trying to help you is an important message that we need to put out. And this is a message that we are supporting our healthcare workers and those that take care of us. Thank you.
Representative Hornak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a note on this as well that I forgot to mention that was brought up during testimony is that by passing a law like this, it will require the hospitals to report every single incident. And that puts a very unfair strain on our police departments and other departments because they will have to report everything. And that will have to go all the way through the system. So, hopefully nobody with Tourette's syndrome has an issue at the hospital. Thanks.
Chairman Swanziger.
Hey, thanks, Madam Chairman. I just need to respond to a couple of the last comments. So first, the original bill had the reporting requirements to the Department of Health. So it wasn't reporting to law enforcement. They already have the choice to do that. All of the reporting requirements that were in the bill that were mandatory was so we could start having a repository and a collection of the type of violence and the numbers because everyone agrees they go far underreported. And we talked about special classes. I don't think this group is asking for any more, any less than our firefighters, our police officers, our service dogs actually are a protected class. If you attack a police dog or a trained eye dog, whatever it is. So I suppose there are other protected classes and we could get rid of all of them, but I think we should keep them on equal footing, and that's what this bill is trying to do, because everyone is aware the only kind of medical class that is a first responding body that doesn't have these same protections are our healthcare workers. And I talked about signage, and I'm sure we could put signs up everywhere that says, please be nice, but it's a little more strong when you say, please be nice under this statute, that committing an act of violence against someone who's trying to help you is a crime. I think that goes a little bit further than just posting signage that says, please don't hit us. So, and then we had some testimony from our local hospital here, and my good colleague from West Laramie County mentioned this, but my hospital here in this county is not like most of your hospitals, right? We are fairly large. We have, I think, 12 security officers on staff throughout the week. And so we handle these incidents a little bit differently than your critical access, your small rural hospitals. And so when we say the internal complaint process for our nurses is to take it up to management, that's internal to our hospital. That's certainly not how most of the other hospitals and healthcare facilities in this state work. So just answer some of those, and I will look forward to some more.
Representative Hearn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like the good representative from District 32 mentioned, we heard a lot of discussion from CNAs and doctors and nurses to make them a federal class, like what one representative asked, it's when they get hit and punched and kicked, and then they have to still take care of that person that just did that to them, or get escorted out of the room, and another one of their employees goes in, or coworker, and gets the same thing. We need to take care of this. And like the good representative said, all the states around us, all 49 of them in the contiguous United States, has the same rules. Vote on in favor.
Representative Washut.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When this bill first came to committee number 1 on the interim, the discussion involved a much broader group of employees. We talked about referees at sporting events who are being threatened and abused. We talked about other employees, but the common denominator between these healthcare workers and those other groups that were originally discussed is that they're all private sector employees. And there's an important distinction there between the private sector and the public sector when we start talking about firefighters and police officers. The employers have a certain responsibility in terms of a safe work environment and so forth. But the most important thing that stuck with me after the testimony we heard this interim was that the present legal system had not been utilized in many of the examples of the testimony that came before our committee. The employer either prevented the case from being reported to law enforcement, or the employee was discouraged from reporting it to law enforcement, or it never was, for whatever reason, reported to law enforcement. So in my book, it was kind of hard to justify adding some additional penalty when many of the examples we heard, we never even tried to use the penalties that we already have. And so it just seems to me that before we start saying that we're going to have higher penalties for certain employee groups, and please don't construe that to me to be, for me to be unsympathetic to what goes on in these emergency rooms and so forth, but we heard examples of people being assaulted by patients who were in ICU. Well, what exactly is a police officer supposed to do with an offender who's in ICU? We're certainly not going to put them in handcuffs and take them to the county jail when they need to be in the ICU. So then we deal with patients who are, mentally ill or under the influence. And the idea of deterring crimes from people who are already irrational, it's hard to deter irrational people from acting irrationally.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So I guess I'm trying to put this in practice, right? And I'm thinking to myself, this hospital just a block away, let's say we have an irate patient. I've seen it happen in the ICU. So a nurse gets a bedpan filled with unmentionables thrown at her or him, knocks her out. She's then brought down to the emergency room, registered aid. They bring in a police officer to detain the person that just threw the bedpan, and he does the same thing to that police officer. He can now be charged with assault on a peace officer. So why would we not put some sort of protection on our healthcare workers? If we have them on our peace officers, if we have them on the people that are on the front lines and their jobs where they're doing it, and we can charge one person in a hospital but not another? I would venture to guess that I don't see why we would not make that distinction. And I've seen this happen. When my grandpa was in the hospital in the ICU just across the street here back in August, I had a gentleman come and rip everything out of his arms in the ICU, woke up from what they thought was a coma, and beat the living pulp out of 2 different nurses, swinging as hard as they could, knocked both of them out. Nothing can be done about that, right? Well, we can charge with assault, but boy howdy, I don't know that that's really the best thing, right? We have assault with a peace officer. Person comes in, that officer was also hurt. We can charge one, but not the other with something like that. We need to protect our healthcare workers. They're the ones that are putting their lives on the line too. Go inside the emergency room, it's just as bad, if not worse. So this understanding and this thought process that we're creating protected classes, we're not doing that. We're protecting the people that are protecting and providing us safety and healthcare. Thank you.
Representative Stivar?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The question I have is, in a nursing home, you have CNAs, you've got the elderly that have dementia. They get assaulted all the time. You know, are we going to have them arrested and thrown in jail? I have one of my daughters is a CNA, works for the VA. Yes, she's been assaulted. You know, what about the medications that these patients are given, and these guys have a allergic reaction or act different on a medication? Are we going to go after them when it was induced? We really got to stop and think about this.
Chairman Swan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nurses take a lot of abuse. I think we all know that. We all know it's underreported. And the issue is it's part of their job. And I think everybody who goes into nursing, in the back of their mind before they get there, and certainly when they're in the profession, you know, people do weird things when they're in pain and they're hurt and they lash out. And 25% of the statistics, we look at them, 25% are those people who are in fact mentally ill. Those are not the people we're talking about where the nurses want them charged with crimes or they're reported to the police unless they're a danger to themselves, right? Your nurses aren't here coming to our committee hearings saying, hey, we want all these people locked up. What they're saying is we want the same equal protection that they get in 49 other states. And this is about the bare minimum of a misdemeanor and a second or subsequent being a felony. If you dare do this again, at the weakest level of a misdemeanor we can get, just so we're on the same playing field as every other state, because nurses are hard to find, especially right now. You can ask how many traveling nurses we have throughout our Wyoming hospitals and in some cases our other healthcare facilities. So talking about that 25%, right, those are the mentally ill, but the next 25%, those are the people, yes, that have substance abuse problems, but we hold them liable in other places in our statutes, right? You're drunk driving, we don't say, oh, you injured someone or hurt them, but you were under the influence. No, you still get charged with a crime, right? What else did I want to mention? Oh, there was some talk about were we going to charge people while they're in the ICU? No, what happens in these cases is you file the paperwork, and when they are treated to the point where they can leave the hospital, then they are charged, and in some cases detained. And we're not asking, you know, the major ones, and some of these are already charged with assault or battery. So I don't think anybody is here asking, hey, we need to really punish all of these people. Your nurses and your other healthcare workers are saying, we just want to be on the same playing field. And it's an economic development competition right now. Because if you get a nurse who's injured, you're taking them off the floor for a day or 2 days or a week. Or sometimes they have mental health conditions. They don't want to go back and treat patients and they leave the profession. And then we have one less nurse. So I don't think this bill is doing anything above what the other 49 states already do. We've made it the lowest level misdemeanor for a first offense we can. But I think it's time, for no other reason than economic reasons, to have people not come to Wyoming and ask our CEOs, why don't we have protections here? I didn't really want to come here. I had 5 options where to travel. You know, that's what they're asking every week. Happy to call for the question if there's no further questions on the bill.
Me. Representative Andrew, Representative Byron.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I would encourage an aye vote. If you support first responders, and I hope this body does, you should be an aye vote on this bill. It's quite simple.
Okay, question having been called, all those in favor of Chairman Zwanzitzer's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that bill number 149 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. The ayes have it, I believe. I believe that that House Bill 141 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill number 161. The reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 161, sponsored by Representative Jennings. Loan disclosure for guarantors and cosigners, an act relating to banking. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom was referred House Bill 161, loan disclosures for guarantors and cosigners, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Burkhart, Conrad, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Tarver, Western. Representative Burkhart, Chairman.
You having heard the reading of the bill, what is your pleasure, Chairman Burkhart?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rise to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 161 do pass. I don't think there are any amendments, and I turn the okay, there is a Committee of the Whole amendment. I move it also, and turn the explanation of the bill and the amendment over to the good sponsor.
Okay, yeah, I believe it's a standing committee amendment by Chairman Burkhart. And it's full move, so Representative Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I don't have the amendment in front of me. So if I can get a copy of that, that'd be great. Okay, maybe. Okay, thank you, Madam Chairman. So members, I bring you House Bill 161, and it also is a consumer protection bill, not unlike the one we just did, except far simpler. So a constituent brought this to my attention, that they had been in and co-signed on a number of loans, and they were not aware that if the primary defaulted, and they made say all the payments, that they had no interest in the property unless there was a separate contract. And so I'm sure that our good loan officers in most banks are doing that, but not all, because it had occurred to a number of people that I'd talked to. And so this bill would only create the need for disclosure to the co-signer, that just because they're signing on a loan does not necessarily give them interest in what they're taking the loan or what they're co-signing on the loan for. So the meat of the bill is on page 2, and the amendment was, we were worried that there's too much paperwork already for our banking institution, our lending institutions, and so on line 8, it would be to strike shall be a separate document, and then we would leave the rest of it, that's the meat of the bill, is shall provide notice to the guarantor or co-signer that agreeing to be a co-signer does not by itself give right to that property or an interest in the property. And in the second part that it does is it spells that out in B, lines 15, 16, and 17, basically. And it just is that in their documentation that you sign off on, they will have spelled that out and given you disclosure that you do not necessarily, that's a separate agreement. You may want to have a contract. So there's the bill in a nutshell, and move the committee, the standing amendment first, to strike those so they don't have to use an extra piece of paper.
You've heard the motion on the standing committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? Question having been called, all those in favor of the standing committee amendment number 1 on House Bill 161, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. Back on the bill. Majority, oh, no, Speaker Pro Tem Stith.
Madam Chairman, thank you. This seems like a pretty good bill. It's a little extra disclosure, doesn't hurt anything. I just wanted to ask the sponsors' views about the desirability of imposing this additional government regulation on our private businesses.
Representative Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. And to the good question bringer, you know, I think that that was really one of my concerns, but since we struck out the separate sheet of paper, I think we'll be okay.
Any other discussion on the bill? Okay. The question having been called, all those in favor of Chairman Burkhart's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it do so with the recommendation that Bill number 161 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 161 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 35.
House Bill 35, sponsored by Representative Heiner. Daycare certification requirement amendments, an act relating to child care facilities. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 35, daycare certification requirement amendments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Allred, Andrew, Brown, Houston, Lawley, Northrup, Obermuller. Noes, Representatives Berger and Provenza. Representative Northrup, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Northrup?
I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that House Bill number 35 do pass. There are no amendments, and so I'll give the good explanation over to the, push that button too quick, over to the representative from the other side of the mountain from me.
Representative Heiner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I bring to you House Bill number 35, and concerning daycare and the availability or lack thereof. Many families in Wyoming have a lack of accessibility to daycare facilities, and it affects their employment and schooling as well. In fact, in Wyoming, it's been designated that 1/3 of the state is in a daycare desert. And that's a complicated definition for a daycare desert, but it essentially means there's more children than there are slots available for daycare. So having challenges such as this, it's particularly difficult for parents and for those that are going to school. In fact, during the year 2020, 19% of student parents had to cancel their plans to go to school because they had to care for someone. This daycare desert affects rural populations more than urban. The Department of Family Services, or department that oversees this, reports that between 2017 and 2021, Wyoming lost 89 child care facilities. That was a 13% reduction in available child care facilities in the state. That hit some of the more rural counties more than others. Niobrara lost 66% of their available child care facilities. 66% loss. Some other counties, I can count 4 other counties that lost 1/3 of their available child care facilities. So I worked with the department that oversees child care, and we found a way that we could increase the exemptions from rules and laws to allow more of these smaller daycare facilities to operate without being under the rules and regulations of the state or the federal government. Realize that the federal government has rules and regulations over daycare facilities and childcare as a whole. So we worked within those parameters and came up with this bill, which provides for some exemptions. So a small daycare facility can operate without being licensed through the state or the federal government. So that's why some of these exemption requirements are pretty specific. You go to page 2 of the bill, it talks about it's for part-time preschool facilities, enrolling fewer than 8 minors who are all over 36 months old, or 10 minors who are all over 48 months old. So if you have a mixture, the youngest applies. So if you have, say, 2 infants that are over 36 months old and 6 that are over 48 months old, then it's limited by the younger of the group. They can't administer medications, they can't prepare food in their home, they have to be potty trained and use toilet, they can't wear diapers, and no more than 10 hours per week. This allows children after they get out of school or before school to go to a home until their parents can pick them up. And of course, they have to adhere to all applicable local health, safety, and fire codes. So this will affect immediately about 12 facilities throughout the state, and it hopefully will give an opportunity for more facilities to open up in their homes, where an individual may welcome a few kids into their home to bridge this lack of access that we have throughout Wyoming for daycare centers. And with that, Madam Chair, I stand for questions.
Chairman Washi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question on preparing food. How specific is that? Does that mean slicing up an apple and giving them a little peanut butter on the side? Is that preparing food? Or handing out a sack lunch that was sent with mom, is that preparing food? Or does it require cooking? Just, are these kids not able to get a snack, I guess, is my real concern.
Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Heiner.
Madam Chair, thank you. So preparing food in the home requires some inspections, of course, if you're cooking in the home. Most of these facility operators, what they do is they have snacks available. It's hard to go even for a couple hours without snacks for young children. So there's some individually wrapped snacks that you can get, snacks that you're actually not cooking, and so that you don't fall under those requirements for inspections of a kitchen or a cooking facility.
Representative Penn?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. On and for this bill, this isn't a topic that hits very close to home for me, given the young nature of my children and the fact that I work. Childcare access is a real struggle in a lot of Wyoming communities, as was just discussed. This bill addresses the root cause of why we're having such a struggle with our childcare. There's several different childcare bills that are coming through this session, and a lot of them have a government response to what actually is a government root of the issue, and that's regulation. So this attempts to cut the regulation. I am very familiar with this. We've been through, in my own home, we've been through several daycares, in almost one daycare a year, actually. And the reason we get bumped from daycare is because they close. Not because they don't want to provide care, but because the regulations have gotten to the point where they just can't make it anymore. The last time we got dumped from a daycare is because they had decreased their numbers. They were at 15 or 20 kids, and she was watching in her home, and she had several helpers and was compliant, but the regulations had changed such that at that number of children, she now had to have a commercial dishwasher in her home. And the cost of that versus, the benefit, she cut back the number of kids, and so we got dropped. And that's what's happening, is the regulation. So I applaud the intent of this bill with regards to the what is the preparation of food or that sort of thing. There's very specific outlined things on what you can and cannot do. You can give a child peanut butter and bread, but you can't put the peanut butter on the bread. And so if kids come to daycare with their lunches packed, then that's great. They can give the kid the lunch, they can put it in the microwave. They can't prepare the food, but things like fruit snacks and those types of things the daycares can provide and still fall into being in compliance with what this bill talks about. On and for, thank you.
Representative Berger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few things here. I want to say that I am now on and in favor of this bill. I talked to the good representative from near my area, from Southwest Corner, and we talked out some concerns I had about making sure it doesn't affect disabled kids, and making sure that, you know, they have the opportunity to go to those certified places and be taken care of. And I'm all on board now. So I got my questions answered, and I appreciate it. So vote for this bill. It's a good bill. Like it.
The question having been called, all those in favor of Chairman Northrup's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Bill number 35 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 35 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 57. The reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 57, sponsored by Representative Brown, Armed Forces Amendments, an act relating to defense forces and affairs. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred House Bill 57, Armed Forces Amendments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Berger, Brown, Nemec, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Pendergraft, Smith, Stivar, Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman.
I got a note here, says that the clock has stopped, and please ask the chief clerk to start it back up. I'm not even sure what that means, but. You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Brown? Or have we done it?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 57 do pass. And I will turn the bill explanation over to myself. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm hoping that this might be the quickest bill of the session. This is literally a statutory cleanup bill that was brought to me through the Department of Defense. If you take a look, I did send you an email with all the information in here. Really what we're doing is we're cleaning up. Back in 2019, we added a new branch in our service to our services, and that's the United States Space Force. This language basically cleans up, adds the United States Space Force to that. I don't want to read you through a 20-page bill, so I'm just going to take you to the meat of the bill, which is on page 2 and 3. And what you'll see is we have two different usages of language here. We have armed forces, which means the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Space Force, and Coast Guard. And then you have the uniformed services, which also includes all of the armed forces, but also includes any National Guard or any reserve or auxiliary component thereof. And so the one important piece there is like the Civil Air Patrol. So kind of think of them, they're an auxiliary unit of the Air Force. So then we also have onto page 3, the Commissioned Corps of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Yes, we do have those individuals here in this state. They run our National Weather Service. We also have the Commissioned Corps of the Public Health Service and any other category the persons designated by the President of the United States from time to time or in war of emergency. With that, Madam Chairwoman, the rest of this bill literally goes to nothing but conforming amendments and all of our statutes that raise either military or non-military service, but they rank out the armed forces or uniformed services. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
The question being called, all those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Bill number 57 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. House Bill 57 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 30. The reading clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 30, sponsored by Education, Wyoming's Tomorrow Scholarship Program Amendments, an act relating to the Wyoming Tomorrow Scholarship Program. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred House Bill 30, Wyoming's Tomorrow Scholarship Program Amendments, respectfully report same back to the House with a recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Henderson, Larson, Nicholas, Sherwood, Stith, Walters, Swanitzer. Representative Nicholas, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Northrup?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I move that when the committee of the whole do so rise to report that House Bill number 30 do pass. I also move the standing committee amendment. We just inserted business day or business in trying to make sure that the, oh, I'm sorry, and I have to move the standing committee amendment. Is it the clock?
No.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
I got ahead of him,
Mr.
Chairman
Speaker,
Northrup.
your committee number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 30, Wyoming's Tomorrow Scholarship Program Amendments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Allred, Andrew, Berger, Brown, Houston, Lawley, Northrup, Obermuller, Provenza. Representative Northrup, Chairman.
All right. You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Northrup?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises report it, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 30 do pass. There's a standing committee amendment. I move it also, and it just adds business days into it. We just thought that it would make more sense that if the end of the month was on a Sunday, that it would be the first business day instead, so, or even on a Saturday. So we're just trying to clean that up. Call for the question on the standing committee.
Okay, all right. You've heard the motion on standing committee amendment number 1. Are you ready for the question? There I go again, getting it behind myself. Question having been called, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to quickly answer a couple of questions that have been on email. It says some of the questions out there are like, this benefits some businesses and not others. And so there's a sheet that has been handed out by the Wyoming Community Colleges, and let's talk about what businesses this will benefit. We have within a town to the north of us, there is clinical medical certifications, computers, networking, computer science, cybersecurity, diesel techs, electrical apprentices, human resources. One college has a CDL class. It pretty much just covers every kind of work that's available for every kind of business that's out there. Another question that was kicked in for this Wyoming Tomorrow Scholarship is that it's an administrative cost. And understand that community college can react very quickly to an incentive or to an ask. So if you come to a community college and you say, hey, I'd like to put in a CDL program, I did that. They put in one in our community because they saw the need, they saw what was happening, and quickly went out, got all the equipment put together. Within a year, that was up and running, and we're now graduating 40 in a cohort with the CDL license, and there's a waiting list. And so that it works. These programs are out there. They're quickly able to get a program up and running. I'll answer more questions, and I'd like to turn the rest of the discussion of the bill over to the good chairman of revenue.
Chairman Harshman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, I've been asked to move the standing committee amendment number 2. I said I wouldn't withdraw. This comes from your appropriations committee, and you can see that amendment, a $40 million haircut to the endowment and the expenditure reserve account, and then an insert of $15 million and some language on the Wyoming Works program. So overall, a $25 million haircut. And if there's any questions, if not, I'd call for the question on standing committee amendment number 2.
Oh, no? Okay. Waving me off. All right. Question having been called. All those in favor of standing committee amendment number 2, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Standing amendment number 2 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Chairman Harshman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, the Wyoming's Tomorrow program, as you know, we passed into law last year. This bill has a little bit of Wyoming Works in it as well. These programs have some differences, different populations. The Wyoming Works is more folks out of high school and in CTE type programs. The Wyoming's Tomorrow is more of a retraining program for adults who are 24 years and older, citizens of our state, and really open to really any training programs. A lot of it's medical and nursing assistants and et cetera that are in need in our state, and caretakers for many of our population. Really, I won't spend much time on this. I'll just basically, if you have any questions, but really this work has been going for years. It started with the Attainment Council. It's really about our demographics. Every state's kind of going through this. We're one of the last states to kind of bring one of these programs. When we're bringing this forward the last 4 years, it's really been modeled after other states. Tennessee is a good example. We've had some trial runs in our state with generosity of some incredible, generous people in this state have proved the concept, and it's been proved around the country. And all those materials, I think many of them have been handed out in your box. The community college in this town with the rediscovery program and the foundation that has worked in Western Wyoming, I think Northwest College. And the key is if people are already here, but I think the key thing, and you folks are in business, and you've talked to me about it, it's hard to get workers in any profession. And, with an unemployment rate right at 3%, it's hard. And so, and particularly with our demographics, and before we came down here, you might have saw in the news, first time in state's history where we had more deaths than births. And so we're getting older, and we're gonna need everybody. And this whole retraining thing, it's not like maybe our parents where they could stay in a position or whatever. So this whole retraining and folks going back who have committed to Wyoming and raising their kids here to go back and retrain and continue to change their family tree. I'd stand for any questions. We've debated this bill extensively. There are new people on the floor might have questions. Lots of people on the floor could answer those questions. So thank you, Madam Chair, and please vote aye on the bill, House Bill 30. Thank you.
Representative Stivar.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The question I got, 2019, we passed the Wyoming Works bill with $5 million in it. The following year, they'd only spent about 2.5 to set the programs up. What's the difference? And I think it was the year before last, they still hadn't given any grants out on that. Can somebody explain how that works and what's going on? Because something's wrong with this. Vote no.
Speaker Summers.
Madam Chairman, thank you. So just to answer that question, so Wyoming Works was created with a couple of pots of money. One was for a programmatic piece of Wyoming Works. So it was for community colleges to stand up programs in their area that were related to CTE for specific industries. Pretty much that whole pot of money is used up. On the Wyoming Works grant piece, which is the scholarship to students, the bulk of that money has been gone through, and in my office I have what was left, and some of that is money that's still available for those students to finish those programs. So Wyoming Works is still doing good things, I think. Not to talk about other bills, but there's another bill out there to try to merge some of these two programs and the languages. But just so you know, Wyoming Works has done good things, and much of that grant money's gone, and virtually all the programmatic dollars are gone. And that was basically centered around industries in certain communities and the workforce needs, and it was primarily CTE out of community colleges. On in support of this bill. It's an important bill.
Representative Knapp.
Madam Chairman, thank you. So this program was a good program. It was set up, I think, in good faith to help those workers that were either displaced by industries that were declining to find other work. So money was put in there, but the important thing was this is supposed to be a partnership. This is supposed to be a partnership with industry because really what this is doing is training their workforce for them. And up in the north, in my country, we've done a very good job with our community college in merging industry with education to the point where they kind of tell us what they need as far as employment goes. The college matches that, and people have jobs waiting for them when they come out. But that industry has donated millions of dollars into both the college and the effort to match this partnership. So as we funded this, and the reason we funded it not fully, it's a trust fund, and it was proposed at 50 million before, and now we wanted to put 100 million in it, and that's been scaled down. But we're waiting for industry to do that partnership throughout the rest of the state. So I don't know what the balance is, but I would like to see industry participate in this fund. And the reason it's a trust fund also is so that people can donate into it. Industry can match money into it. So I'd like to see that start to happen before we put a bunch more money into this.
Representative Obermuller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer that question about the training, it's in this industry puts a lot of money into training, a lot. It just doesn't flow into these joint programs, but they have training centers. The amount, I know in my client base, a tremendous amount of money was poured into employee development, employee training. So that is going on, and this program is important. And, you know, I'm asking you to kind of reconsider this. If you're thinking that this is a no vote, I want you to think of this as a yes vote. Because when business in Wyoming speaks, I listen. So when they weigh in person, and reach out on a bill, it really gets my attention. You may not love the structure of this bill, and you're thinking, I don't want to vote for this because of the structure, but the business community does love this structure. And the associations in support of this come from the following economic sectors. We either heard from them directly in our committee, or they sent us their endorsements. The petroleum industry, the mining industry, agriculture, telecommunication, manufacturers, the stock growers, the contractors, and the alliance of all businesses in the state of Wyoming. My friends, that's a lot of support for this bill. Please vote aye.
Representative Lawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really strongly support this bill. One of the great things this legislature did was create the Hathaway Scholarship. And it did some amazing things, and it did what I call light well a pathway for students, and it well supported that pathway through the Hathaway Scholarship. But we have pathways right now that are not well lit, and this particular demographic that this scholarship is targeting is one that does not have a well-lit pathway. It is not well supported, and in my view is not fair, and that needs to change. And I want to tell you how I came to understand that myself. A number of years ago, our daughter attended the community college near where I live as a nursing student. As a part of that experience, my husband and I became concerned about the fact of the declining amount of nurses in the state of Wyoming. And so we created a modest scholarship at that community college. Again, don't let your imaginations run away with you. It was a modest scholarship. The only requirement we put on that scholarship was that the person that received it had to have made some kind of commitment to stay in Wyoming as a nurse, practicing their nursing skills in Wyoming. And the rest of the scholarship decisions and criteria was managed through that foundation of that community college. And I expected when we formed that really more of a traditional student like my daughter had been. But that's not what happened. The students that were awarded that scholarship fall right into this demographic of this bill. As I got to know some of them and hear their stories, it became so clear to me how unlit their pathway was, their ability to try to navigate. And even this modest scholarship was sliced and diced to help these people find ways that they could move forward. And it was just so clear to me, the distinction between what we've done in Hathaway and this new demographic. And it is partly a change in our culture that has occurred over time. But there is no well-lit pathway for them. There's no well-supported pathway with them. And I'd like to see that change, and that's why I support this bill.
Vice Chair Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Folks, a number of years ago, when a utility here in the state announced a new nuclear program, the good chairman from Minerals set up a meeting with the folks at a national laboratory on nuclear stuff in the potato state. And he and I and a couple other people went over, the former country lawyer that was in this body went over there. And as those folks met with us, they says, we don't think you guys have a clue of the opportunity that's waiting for you. And they spent the next 10 hours just explaining the possibilities that could come to the state. On the way home, we said we kind of just carried on the conversation. We was a little awestruck about what had been revealed to us. And then we expanded that whole conversation on the 6-hour drive back home on what our energy policy is for the state and how do we do that. Are we going to do what we have done in the past, which is to, when all of these projects come forward, look in the rear view mirror and say, "Dagburn, if we had been ready, we could have had our Wyoming companies do this. We could have employed our Wyoming workers doing this rather than bringing in employees and labor from other states and other companies to do that." And so we've been working the last 4 years in kind of an ad hoc committee to try and move some of this conversation forward. Right now, this is a list I got today from one of our permitting agencies. We have that these are larger scale projects. We have a gold mine. We have a large soda ash expansion and creation. We have a pump storage facility. We have a carbon capture project taking place. We have another in situ Trona mine expansion. We have the nuclear project. We have a rare earth demonstration up here. We have statewide a number of ongoing highway and civil contracts. We have a decarbonization project, a clean hydrogen project it's in the introduction stage to the siting commission. The coal gasification projects, another wind project, a solar project, a renewable wind, a data campus, another large utility transmission line, and then another solar project. So when you talk with that agency, as we've been having these conversations, you talk to that agency that deals with workforce services, that director says, where do we get the people? We don't have this in place. And so if we say we're going to generate those from our K-12 populations, we're going to miss the boat. And so where is the biggest opportunity? Where's the low-hanging fruit? It's in this population that Wyoming's tomorrow can really capture. And in all the variety of needs that these industries will need, not only during the construction phase and the industries that will be associated with them, but in their ongoing existence while they're in Wyoming. So I think this investment will be returned many-fold as we try to keep this work here in the state with Wyoming contractors, with Wyoming businesses, and with Wyoming people. I encourage you to vote for it.
Chairman Washi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honor for the bill. Think about how often you've had one of two different types of conversations, maybe both, about the number of employers who cannot find qualified employees to come to work for them, or about the number of people who are not participating in the workforce for whatever reason. They're sitting home, not working. The people that these scholarships benefit are the folks who want to go to work, who want to be in the workplace, who want to fill those jobs that are presently vacant. These are people who need to be supported and applauded and rewarded. That's what this program's all about. It's one of the best things we've come up with in a long time. I urge an aye vote.
Representative Wiley.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. My good representatives, when I'm not here, I'm a tradesman. That's what I do. That's what I do to make a living. And skilled labor is becoming very, very rare. And to get the younger generations and people to even switch from other careers into any kind of skilled labor is difficult. And I think this is going to give us another avenue to help people realize that they can get into another field with a good paying job and stay in Wyoming. And we talk about retention of our young people. Maybe some of our young people don't want to follow into higher education. This will help them find another career through life, another pathway. On and for the bill. Thank you.
Representative Larson, JT.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to remind the body that industry is supporting this. How do you think we get the majority of our funding for this state? It's industry. And industry is asking us to meet the needs of the workforce. So vote aye for this bill.
Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm in the industry too, and I will train anybody that comes to my job and wants a job. I'll train them. I'll train them on my dime. I'll train them if they come to work every day. I will take care of them as best I can, and I'll try to keep them as long as I can. Wyoming's a different animal. It doesn't work this way. I'm sorry. It doesn't work this way. We have these giant projects that require 150 electricians to come out on these projects. And so they bus them up from Colorado or our state to the south. It just doesn't work this way. I'm sorry. We just don't have the people. I'd like to say we do, but we don't. So we can dump all the money we want to into training, and it won't really work. We'll just keep having the same result. We've got these giant construction projects. We will continue not to have the resources within Wyoming to take care of them. But hey, I bet every company will take anybody they can and they will train them. So I really don't see the necessity of dumping this much money into this program. Thank you.
Representative Tavar.
Madam Chairman, thank you. Everything the previous speaker just said is 100% true. It's not trying to find qualified help. It's trying to find help, period. Money won't fix this problem. Thanks.
Representative Conrad.
Chairwoman, thank you for the opportunity. We've danced around this a little bit with regards to throwing out numbers, 100%, et cetera, so forth and so on. I want to share with you just a counter view. in Southwest Wyoming, this is working. We are able to provide, and more importantly, enable young men and women who have graduated out of high school, not wanting to go to their four-year college, but allowing them to be a part of the soda ash industry. Specifically, as we look at our respective community colleges, et cetera, where we're able to recruit graduates from there that this program that we're talking about is supporting, specifically process control, electricians, mine maintenance people, et cetera, so forth and so on. It is working. Now, is it working as effectively at 100% everywhere? Likely not, but let's not overstep our bounds here and say that it's working. It is not working, because I will share with you as testimony, being over there for 30 years in this industry, it is working, and it continues to work greatly. And without this specific bill, we continue to lose that effort and energy. We still are recruiting and will hire anyone and everyone who is properly trained, but we're actually taking our hourly workforce, allowing them to be a part of this program, to allow them to come back in these positions that are effectively in promoting their livelihoods, their families, and a continuation of efforts as we mine in the southwest corner. I strongly support this bill and encourage you to do so too, because it does work.
Representative Banks.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Let's take a look at the reality of things and where do our workforce learn? Where do our trainees learn? On the job. They learn on the job, they start at the bottom and work their way up. Putting $65 million towards people so they can skip the bottom and skip it and jump to the top isn't gonna aid the workforce. When you're in industry, and we heard testimony here from people who are in industry, when you're trained and when you're in the workforce and when you're on the job, you learn. If you want to be a plumber, you learn with a plumber. You learn on the job. And so I don't see where $65 million towards putting people towards a higher than needed goal is going to solve our workforce issue. It looks good, but it's not going to get again to the root of the problem. And so if we continue to promote come to the job and have incentives to go right to the job, that's going to go a long ways further than giving a $65 million feel-good push. Thank you.
Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In my community, we have people who are forklift operators, and they know that they're not going to be able to do anything to help themselves except to get another certificate. So, for example, they'll go take an HVAC class at night and start working on improving their skill set at night while they still hold a job that pays the bills. Another one's electricians. We're short on electricians in our area, so we have this program set up. These guys come in at night, they're there for 3 hours. It's working, we're getting more of these people out, then they're able to get a job as an electrician. They can say, at least I have a foot in the door and I can start working. And that's what these programs will do. In Wyoming, it's estimated there's 212,000 people without a certificate or a diploma. What's our population?
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, our Chairwoman. I agree with one of the previous speakers here. You know, being on the job is a very important component, but with today's society and requirements, in order to advance, we have to have the learning on the side. And if what I'm understanding here is correct, if you can get this assistance on the side to increase your way up the ladder, I think it's a good plan. But in all fact, you have to have the person there that is willing to start. If you don't have that person, then I agree, none of the money is worth the effort. But you have to have that person, and they have to have the drive. So I'm for the bill.
Representative Conrad.
Madam Chairwoman, thank you. I do want to share with you in respect to the previous comments, it is a feel-good story. This is a feel-good story, specifically when you look at the hundreds and hundreds of minors that have been impacted by this positively. It does feel good. And additionally, I'll share with you this, the minors don't have an opportunity to just jump in and become as a technical or have that CTE training. They can't overstep or start at the bottom. It just doesn't work that way, specifically in a union environment. They have to receive that proper training to be eligible for the respective qualifications that are necessary to be, as I mentioned, that maintenance, mine maintenance man, surface maintenance man, process control, plant operator, et cetera. Feel good? Yeah, it does feel good, specifically for the hundreds, again, miners that have been positively impacted by this. Think about that. Think about what built this building, mining.
I believe Representative Alleman was next. I'm sorry. You moved.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You know, 65 million, this is a good fill bill, all right? I have a daughter that graduated high school with her CNA license. She's just turned 25 in May. November 8th, she passed her pharmacy tech, to get her pharmacy tech certificate. She didn't have any help. She did it on her own because she wants to move up. That's what this is about. People have to get up and want to work. Vote no.
Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would just like to say, coming from family and generation of blue-collar workers, working your way up is not a bad thing. Number one, you start at the bottom, you learn a company, and you get to know how they are, and you work your way up. Taking classes on the side to better yourself and to become a better part of that organization is the way of America. I mean, that's just the way it is. But 40 years ago, my husband said to me, "We are in trouble. We don't have any young guys. We don't have any young guys coming at all. There's nobody carrying the buckets. There's nobody working alongside the welders. There's no trainees with the carpenters. There's no people there at the entry-level positions." And that's because education and the government said, we need white-collar workers. Computers are the thing of the future. So that's the way we went, and here's where we are. So my question is, as industry sees, and we're seeing that we do need blue-collar and white-collar workers as well to run this great nation, why is it that for a scholarship, that industry isn't providing the scholarships? And why is it that the people, all the people here, have to pay for that? Where's the meat in it? We have a wonderful program in our county. They went and bought 2 brand new semis. They brought a meat cutting facility, a mobile unit, and everything. All that equipment is getting leased out, because while we needed meat cutters at the grocery store, they hired people and they're training them. So a 2-year degree in this particular instance, nobody's there. The last fellow that they had as an instructor went to work for one of the businesses that's in business. So I'm just saying, we don't always need to fix everything. If we want to have this program, which I voted for, fine. But to think that we have to totally subsidize and do that, I just disagree. So I'm going to, no.
Representative Wiley, excuse me.
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, I would just like to call for question. If I could.
Representative Penn is also at the mic, so we'll give her a chance, and then we'll let you jump right in with that. Representative Penn.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So it's been said that industries support this. And, you know, the longer I'm sitting in these committees and listening to testimonies and these associations coming and representing their people, the more I'm actually realizing those associations aren't representing their workforce all that well. They're representing the higher level of that association and making sure the association does well with this. But when I get the emails coming in from the people who are actually affected by those decisions, they're not always in congruence. So maybe the associations are supporting, of the industries are supporting this, but from the emails that are coming into me, I'm not getting that from the workforce. Another comment that was made says in order to be able to jump in, they have to have a level of training. That might be true for some lines of work out there. There are some things that we need to make sure people have some training for. But so many of these industry fields here, on-the-job training is just as good as having to go to school and get a certificate. And if there's a certificate that's required for something that can be obtained by on-the-job training, who is it that's put that regulation into place? Is that us? Have we done that to these industries and required that? Thanks.
All right. The question being called, all those in favor of Chairman Northrup's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Bill number 30 do pass. All in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. House Bill 30 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration, division having been called. All those, all those in favor of House Bill 30, stand up. Okay. You guys count, right? Oh, I count too. Oh. I think it's that's what I got here. Oh, 37, yes, I'm right. All right. All opposed, please stand. Huh? Okay. It's less than 37. Again, House Bill 30 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration, Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move the whole Committee of the Whole rise and report.
What? Oh, you have heard the motion? All those in favor say aye. It's Friday, all right? Opposed? Motion carries. I know, and I'll make my little motion. I come with a lot of stuff. Did I take the wrong?
The reading clerk will read the Committee of the Whole report.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole, having had under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. House Bill 149, do pass amended. House Bill 161, do pass amended. House Bill 35, do pass. House Bill 57, do pass. House Bill 30, do pass amended. Representative Lawley, Chairman.
Representative Lawley.
I move the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The motion carries. Congratulations, Representative Lawley. Messages from the Senate.
Message 204. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. Senate File 33, defining aircraft for purposes of hunting prohibitions. Ayes 29, noes 1, excused 1. Message 205. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Senate File 113, Architects Practice Act Amendments. Ayes 30, excused 1. Message 206. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Senate File 117, Parental Rights in Education. Ayes 18, noes 12, excused 1. Message 207. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Senate File 137, Subdivisions, Fencing Requirements. Ayes 26, noes 4, excused 1. Message 208. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. Senate File 109, Prohibiting Chemical Abortions. Ayes 23, noes 6, excused 2. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
Reports from standing committees.
House Bill 88, sponsored by Representative Banks, Foreign Ownership of Agriculture Land Prohibited, an act relating to property. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom was referred House Bill 88, Foreign Ownership of Agricultural Land Prohibited, respectfully reports same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Allemand, Allred, Banks, Slagle, Winter. Noes, Representatives Conrad, Crago, Davis, Eklund. Representative Eklund, Chairman. House Bill 89, sponsored by Capital Finance, State Investment Returns, Adequate Reserve Funding, an act relating to the investment of state funds. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred House Bill 89, State Investment Returns, Adequate Reserve Funding, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Henderson, Larson, Nicholas, Sherwood, Stith, Walters, Swanitzer. Representatives Nicholas, Chairman. House Bill 116, sponsored by Representative Allemand, prohibiting foreign property ownership in Wyoming, an act relating to property. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 116, prohibiting foreign property ownership in Wyoming, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Allemand, Allred, Banks, Conrad, Davis, Eklund, Slagle, Winter. Noes, Representative Crago. Representative Eklund, Chairman. House Bill 118, sponsored by Representative Newsom. Volunteer Firefighter Pension Funding, an act relating to volunteer firefighter EMT and search and rescue pension account. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, to whom is referred House Bill 118, Volunteer Firefighter Pension Funding, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Burkhart, Conrad, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley. Noes, Representatives Tarver, Western. Representative Burkhart, Chairman. House Bill 121, sponsored by Representative Lawley. Property Tax Deferral Program Amendments, an act relating to property taxes. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 3, Revenue, to whom was referred, I'll back up. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom was referred House Bill 121, Property Tax Deferral Program Amendments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Henderson, Larson, Nicholas, Sherwood, Stith, Walters, Zwanitzer. Representative Nicholas, Chairman. House Bill 140, sponsored by Representative Zwanitzer Dan. Mental Health Care Access Collaborative Care Model, an act relating to health insurance. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 4, Education, to whom is referred House Bill 140, Mental Health Care Access Collaborative Care Model, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Allred, Andrew, Berger, Brown, Klauston, Lawley, Northrup, Obermueller, Provenza. Representative Northrup, Chairman. House Bill 157, sponsored by Representative Larson Lloyd, County Board Dissolution Requirements, an act relating to counties. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred House Bill 157, County Board Dissolution Requirements, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Crago, Harrelson, Jennings, Nemick, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Representative Washit, Chairman. House Bill 172, sponsored by Representative Eklund, Evidence Preservation, an act relating to criminal procedure. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred House Bill 171, Evidence Preservation, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Chestick, Nemick, Oakley, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Noes, Representatives Crago, Harrelson, Jennings. Representative Washit, Chairman. House Bill 179, sponsored by Representative Harshman, Medical Care for Wyoming Communities, an act relating to medical care. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred House Bill 179, Medical Care for Wyoming Communities, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Klauston, O'Hearn, Trujillo, Yin, Zwanitzer. Noes, Representatives Hornock, Penn, Ward. Representative Zwanitzer, Chairman. House Bill 196, sponsored by Representative Henderson, Wyoming Infrastructure Protection Act, an act relating to trade and commerce. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom is referred House Bill 196, Wyoming Infrastructure Protection Act, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Burkhart, Conrad, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Tarver, Western. Noes, Representative Banks. Representative Burkhart, Chairman. House Bill 206, sponsored by Representative Yin, State Employee Child Care, an act relating to administration of government. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred House Bill 206, State Employee Child Care, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Chadwick, Klauston, O'Hearn, Trujillo, Yin, Zwanitzer. Noes, Representatives Hornock, Penn, Ward. Representative Zwanitzer, Chairman. House Bill 269, sponsored by Representative Nicholas. Workers' compensation, attorneys' expenses and costs, an act relating to labor and employment. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred House Bill 269, Workers' compensation, attorneys' expenses and costs. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Henderson, Larson, Nicholas, Sherwood, Stith, Walters, Zwanitzer. Representative Nicholas, Chairman.
Re-referrals, Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to re-refer House Bill 118 and House Bill 196 to Committee Number 2 Appropriations.
Seeing no objection, House Bills 118 and 196 are re-referred to Committee Number 2 Appropriations. Chairman Eklund.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to re-refer House Bill 114 to Committee Number 3 and House Bill 217 to Committee 6, Wildlife and Recreation, and re-refer House Bill 88 and House Bill 116 to Appropriations Committee Number 2. It is.
So, seeing no objection, House Bills 116 and 88 are re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Seeing no objection, House Bill 114 is re-referred to Committee Number 3, Revenue. And seeing no objection, House Bill 116 is re-referred to Committee Number 6, Travel. I think just a note on that, on those two, I think the good chairman's struggling with time, and I think he's trying to get some bills out of his committee so he can hear the other ones in these committees. So I think that's what he's doing there, if anybody's curious. And with that, does that clear the deck? Chief? Okay. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that, good grief. Excuse me. Someday I'll be a real boy. Okay, here we go. Mr. Speaker, I move that the House adjourn until 10 a.m. Monday, January 30th, 2023. And also, for those of you that want the order for Monday, please watch the website because there's a lot of new bills that just come in and I will update it. I won't be able to give you a list tonight, so we'll take those into consideration. So check the website.
Just a reminder, the budget bill will be on COW Monday and Committee of the Whole. And so hopefully we'll get through second reading and third reading in good shape to be able to get at least half of that done. Committee announcements, Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, will meet at 8 a.m. on Monday in Capital Extension Room 5. We will continue hearing House Bill 213, Energy Production Inventory Exemption, House Bill 210, Financial Institution Decriminalization, House Bill 239, Vehicle Idling Decriminalization, and as time permits, House Bill 253, Credit Card Defense Act.
Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, will meet at 7:30 a.m. on Monday. And yes, I know it's going to be cold. House Bill 119, Medical Prescriptions Off-Label, House Bill 165, Living Organ Donor Protection, and House Bill 127, Healthcare Facilities and Clergy, will all be heard.
Chairman Eklund.
Mr. Speaker, I had visited with we don't have a committee notice out yet, but I had visited with the Ag Committee about meeting real early at 6 o'clock and ran into some snags, so we'll meet at 7 will be our usual time. And I'll have the notice out Monday.
Chairman Washut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 1, Judiciary, will meet at 7:30 a.m. on Monday. Cover 2 bills, House Bill 214, your regulatory sandbox, and House Bill 152, Life is a Human Right.
Privilege, Representative Crago.
Privilege, if I may, Mr.
Please.
Speaker. Just a general announcement, the Wyoming caucus will be meeting tonight at 7 o'clock for social hour, if anyone cares to join us. Thank you.
Chairman Nicholas.
The location of the Wyoming caucus is the Met, by the way. So, Mr. Speaker, your House Appropriations will meet at 8:30 on Monday. We'll continue with House Joint Resolution 6, House Joint Resolution 7, and House Joint Resolution 12, and House Bill 196, and the re-referrals that were just given.
Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 4, Education, will meet upon noon recess on Monday, where we're going to work 3 bills, House Bill 151, House Bill 201, Hathaway Fallen First Responder Scholarship, and House Bill 167, Wyoming Teacher Shortage Loan Repayment Program.
Chairman Olson.
Committee number 7, House Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions will meet Monday upon noon recess in our usual place of abode, E005, to consider 3 bills: House Bill 141, Party Affiliation Changes, House Bill 103, Political Party Affiliation Declaration and Changes, and House Bill 207, you guessed it, Change in Party Affiliation.
Any other announcements? You have heard the majority. Chief, you got something? You've heard the majority floor leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. The House is adjourned until 10 a.m. January 30th, 2023.